Hey guys, Josh here from Sportitude Running, and today shoe review time, and we're going to be talking all things Nike Zoom Fly 5. This shoe right in front of me has just landed in our warehouse in Australia. It's had a few weeks now on the global market, so there's been a number of people that have heard of this shoe, watched some reviews, and we've actually had a couple of our staff/team members downstairs actually put it on foot and take it for a few gallops out on the road. So there's a lot to like about where Nike have come from their Zoom Fly 3 and 4 and what they have put into the Zoom Fly package. In today's review, we're going to dive over all those key changes: outsole, midsole, upper, profile, the runner, and the foot type that could be considering this shoe. Look at where it sits in the whole scheme of things, all things shoe rotation, give you all the information that you need at home to, who knows, maybe make this your next shoe purchase. So without further ado, let's get stuck in. Okay, before I jump into the engineering features, let's touch on what this shoe is and where it sits. Now, it's not the lightest shoe on the market by any stretch of the imagination. We're talking 286 grams for a men's size 9, but it is kind of pitched at that light sort of category. So someone that wants that slightly quicker, snappier feel on their foot when they're going out the door for the quicker tempo runs. It's got that full-length carbon plate, so you certainly feel like you've got that enhanced push through toe-off. However, the midsole compound, which is what Nike have used with this shoe, is that recycled ZoomX. So you would kind of think ZoomX midsole would have that similar fit and feel to what you get out of your Alphas, your Next Percents, and your Zoom Invincibles. However, hate to break your hearts, it's a slightly different feel. It's got the same technology which we see in the Zoom Vomero 16, which is that SRO2 compound. So it's a relatively soft but pretty resilient midsole. Now, that's where the confusion probably kicks in for a lot of runners out there. When we're looking at this shoe, as we touched on, it's a little bit lighter than most daily trainers, but it's certainly not very light like you would find from probably your Endorphin Speed 2 from Saucony, for example, because it's kind of talking to that same consumer, that runner that wants that snappy feel on their foot. However, it's certainly stable enough for the right foot type that could be using this for some daily training, as well as someone looking for a pretty snappy ride when they get out the door as well. The other thing to note as well is it is a neutral shoe, so we'll touch on that in the midsole part of this review. But for what foot type would consider this as a touch on neutral, hit this link above my head and we'll take you through to one of our reviews we've done previously, which identifies the foot types out there. Okay, let's touch on the outsole first. So Zoom Fly 5 here, Zoom Fly 4 in my right hand. Side by side, you can see that you've got two essentially split outsole pieces. So you got the heel covered, and then you have some exposed midsole through this midfoot, and then you have the outsole configuration through the front half. So technically speaking, on paper, it looks pretty similar. However, the biggest change is the overall surface area. So Zoom Fly 4, very narrow midsection through here. So if you're heel striking, midfoot striking, you don't get a very broad platform for your foot to sit on. However, in Zoom Fly 5, you can see here they've increased that surface area, not only in the heel part of this outsole, but as you come through to the midfoot, you've got a slightly broader footbed, and then as you shoot through to the forefoot, they've increased that surface area as well. And as I touched on with that outsole configuration, you've got a durable rubber in that back half for your heel strikers to protect that midsole. You can actually see a little window here. I want to call this out, sorry, but there's a little window that sits just here where you can visibly see that recycled ZoomX midsole as well, or that technology part of me. So that little window exposes that, and as you come through to the forefoot, you can see there's plenty of surface area on offer up the front half of this shoe. And that's kind of where a lot of this attention is driven. When you're talking your lightweight shoes, your tempo shoes, you want to make sure that front half has got plenty of surface area and coverage to give you the confidence and grip out there on the road, and also to protect that midsole being the asset. Jumping through to the upper of this shoe review, and it's probably my favourite part of this shoe review in comparison to where it was last year. So let's just touch on that quickly. The Zoom Fly 4 had a very sort of booty-like construction up top. I actually thought at the time was a really good piece, really good execution of engineering. However, where it probably fell away was it wasn't quite as supportive enough, as supportive as it needed to be to keep the foot on top of this footbed part of me, which is where this shoe was quite narrow through the midfoot, through here. Very similar, obviously, visually to what you see out of your Next Percents, but the biggest change is obviously the midsole compound and the midsole technology being the React foam. So the upper, as we touched on, was that booty-like construction, so it felt good when you put your foot in it. I had no issues whatsoever with that. However, when you got up to speed to sort of put your foot through this shoe to get a little bit more out of it, the upper really didn't lock that foot in as much as I felt it needed to for what this shoe was all about. So then that takes us to Zoomfly 5, where actually up top, I feel it's probably more of an execution of what you'd expect out of a good mileage shoe. So you've got a decent heel counter at the back half through here, so really good stable support. It's certainly not a thick tongue, but it's a padded tongue, so it's nice and comfortable in comparison to this very thin but booty-like upper we got out of the Zoomfly 4. And then as you come through to the Forefoot, I actually really like what they've done with regard to the execution piece. So you have that gusseted construction being it around, not gusseted tongue, sorry. They've got the overlayers which sit underneath the upper here on that medial side, which gives that conform fit. And then on the lateral side as well, you can actually see through the upper itself. So you can see that strap piece which sits on that lateral column, which is going to, again, keep that foot nice and stable and locked down on top of that arch. But the best part is the execution of the upper throughout the Forefoot being, it's nice and breathable, but it's a really good, strong configuration. I actually feel, as I touched on about a minute ago, this fits and feels like you want out of a good mileage shoe, but they've put it on a pretty light and fun package in this midsole, which is what we're going to get to next. Okay, talking all things midsole, let's jump to the statistics straight away. So in the men's, we've got a 8mm heel to toe offset. We've got 41 mil on the heel, 33 in the Forefoot for that variance of 8mm. Now, I'm going to call it out, and I've touched on this in my intro. It does have Nike ZoomX written here in the Forefoot. However, if you're a Nike lover or you have ran in your Invincibles or your Alpha Flyers or your Next Percents, we know what a ZoomX midsole feels like. It's incredibly light, very soft, and very responsive. Now, Nike have came out and said that, yes, this is a ZoomX midsole, but they're using recycled ZoomX technologies to execute what this midsole is all about. So in one way, it's slightly misleading. I'm not being critical there, but when you put this shoe on your foot, you don't have that sinking compression which you get out of those other three ZoomX shoes, nor do you get that really snappy, responsive feel through toe off. So then you've got to sit there and go, okay, what's this midsole doing? What's it all about? Because if it's not going to be really, really soft or really responsive, where does it sit and what's it doing? It does have a full-length carbon plate, though, from the heel through to the Forefoot. So it's injected inside this SR02 midsole, which is what we get out of the Zoom Femero 16. So if you're familiar with that shoe, you'll kind of know how that fits and feels underneath the foot. And that's what we experience here with this shoe. It's just a good, resilient midsole. That's the only way I can really explain. It's not crazy soft, it's not crazy responsive. It just fits and feels pretty honest underneath the foot. However, being it has a carbon plate, the midsole is quite stiff. All right, so therefore, because it's injected inside this midsole, we're not going to get that compression engagement where you're really connecting with the carbon plate to get that snappy, responsive push off. It's a pretty dense sort of setup underneath the foot. However, I actually like what it does for me personally. I think there's a lot of runners out there that will relate to what this shoe does and how it performs, but there will also be a lot of runners out there that may be let down by the fact it does say ZoomX and they may be expecting something different in regards to how it performs. So touching on the technical features of this midsole, let's jump to the medial side. It is a neutral shoe, so there's no additional guidance or any arch support that's been injected inside that mid-step through here. It is all about getting you through your gait as quickly and as efficiently as you possibly can by allowing for a little bit of give on the X and Y axis. That's when you take away that support system. It's all about pushing you through to your toe off, which is that Z axis with regards to the carbon plate execution. Being a higher stack height, I think that plays into what this shoe does. If it was lower, which we experienced last year, in that sort of 39 to 31 millimeter heel to toe drop in the Zoom Fly 4, I reckon it wouldn't feel as fun on the foot. You would probably feel a bit firmer. So just by taking it off the ground a bit higher, they increase the overall surface area underneath the foot to get a slightly extra stable ride underneath, and also to allow for a wee bit more compression through that vertical force when you hit the ground inside this shoe. Okay, let's jump into where the Zoom Flyer sits in regards to other shoes that are on the market. I'm going to jump straight into it. Adidas Boston 10/Boston 11, which is just launched. I mean, you've got a relatively high stack height, like strike foam with the carbon rods. Pretty stiff system in that Boston franchise. Same thing goes with regards to Zoom Fly 5. So you've got that mileage fit and feel, mileage weight with a stiffer midsole, pretty high stack height. Zoom Fly 5, Boston 10/11, pretty similar running shoes. The other one I sort of did speak to in regards to my Endorphin Speed 3 review. I actually felt that there might have been two similar shoes. Now, I'm sorry for those that have watched that review and may watch this review and find that I'm contradicting myself. I'm going to go back on what I said, and it's okay to admit when you're wrong. I think the Endorphin Speed 3 is a lighter, poppier, softer shoe. This doesn't even come into that same conversation. I really do feel that this is definitely your Boston 10, Boston 11 runner, looking for a pretty decent, stable ride, but want a little bit more of a rocker feel with that full-length propulsive carbon plate, which you get out of the Zoomfly 5. So for those of you that are watching this review for the first time, you may have seen this silhouette floating around somewhere before, and there was some leaked images of this shoe very early in 2022, even late 2021, where a couple of Instagram pages and also some shoe geeks out there were launching what we thought was going to be the Pegasus Pro. That was the early shout with regards to this shoe. And it's a pretty good honest call, because what you see in front of us here, the silhouette, the shape of this shoe, it kind of does sit halfway between what we see with a Peg 39 and also a Vomero 16 over here. So pretty similar stack heights. The midsole technology looks pretty similar. And as I touched on in this review, for me, this feels like a mileage upper on top of a relatively honest, snappy midsole, for want of a better term. It's kind of a lot of combinations of a lot of shoes put into one package, in my opinion, which I think is going to be a good thing. And I said this earlier, I think there's some runners that may be let down by what this shoe does, but there can be some runners that pick it up and run with it and really like what this shoe does. So in summarising, Zoomfly 5, I certainly think it's a great update from where it was with Zoomfly 3, Zoomfly 4. I think there's maybe a pretty big grey area around about who can use this shoe. I know there's going to be runners downstairs, a couple of our team members are going to grab this shoe, use it for some mileage running. It's light, but it's stable enough. I wouldn't say it's an absolute go-to for someone looking for that lightweight, really snappy speed shoe. But in saying that, there'll be some runners that will feel that this gives them what they need in regards to that lighter tempo / progressive run setup and shoe. I mean, for me personally, I find this shoe will be stable enough. I'm not running nearly as quick as I used to, so this is a shoe that's going to give me all that I need. It's going to be stable, it's going to feel snappy enough, and I'm not going to feel too banged up after my quicker runs, which is a good thing. So there you have it, guys. That's our take on Zoomfly 5. If you've used this shoe, if you're intrigued by it, if you want to know more, drop us a comment in the comment section below. Let us know what you're thinking and what this shoe may or may not do for you. And guys, if you haven't subscribed to our channel and you like what we're doing, hit that red button, stay notified, and we'll keep knocking out these shoe reviews for you, the running community, all around the world. We love helping you out. We love hearing all about your running journeys. And on that note, stay safe, be kind to one another, take care of each other, happy training, and we'll see you out on the road.